Welcome to Vibration Cinema, the altered destiny of film. One of the common sense ideas that we have about correcting the white supremacist history of filmmaking that we talked about in the last episode is to recognize that black people falling off into heavy shadow is racist, and that we should strive to make sure that black people are lit well. More often than not, though, well here means following certain notions of color rendering and lighting where certain skin tones sit at certain IRE values and that we should light accordingly. And this to me sounds a lot like using race science to correct the history of a medium which was used in part to justify eugenics. And that just didn't really sit well with me. But there's also this aversion to putting black people too far down into the toe. And in modern movies, if a black character is in shadow, there's still a small degree of recognizable visual information like skin tone, costuming, etc. So I wanted to sit down with Hype Williams' Belly because it's a film where the black characters are way down deep in the toe, where you often can't see any detail about them. But there is a care and a craftsmanship to these shadows. And this attention is often overlooked by our contemporary common sense ideas of photographing black people. Even though most modern black films live in the shadow of Belly, they always retreat from its use of shadow, never elevating or going even darker. And it's not that every black movie needs to be a Roy DeCarava photo, it's just that a lot of liberal notions of the politics of art are actively erasing the history of our art practices, and Vibration Cinema is a check to this phenomenon.
I'm in this conversation myself lately about when my eyes are struggling to see a black person in low light, that I have to, I'm in the conversation now myself where I'm literally thinking to myself, all right, what sufficiently can't see that is realistic and cool? Not cool like, oh, that looks cool, but like, okay, right? Like, where is it okay to not see it, not have a lot of information, want more information, and be okay with the fact that I'm not getting what I want out of that? Because now I'm not getting what I want out of it, I have to ask myself, is it what I want, or am I working with the world as it is? You know, or both, or you know, what is the struggle? Now I have to ask myself, that's what his face is. So is it me who thinks that something in this equation should be different and that he should be adjusted? Or is it just the natural fact that I want to see more information? And I'm never sure from one day to the next.
Belly is obsessed with using darkness to swallow up silhouettes. There isn't any real detail in these shadows because the shadow is the detail. Everyone's silhouette is distinct, and everyone's silhouette has a gradient throughout the film which trains you to recognize a particular character's form so that when they are silhouetted in darkness, there is no confusion as to who it is. This is helped, of course, significantly by the fact that most of the characters are played by iconic rappers. This speaks to the level of the team's craftsmanship because, yes, the lighting is a major player here, but none of this would work without specific costuming to catch glints of light, makeup to exaggerate the highlights, editing to modulate and pace the intensity of darkness, and casting with built-in familiarity. This is my favorite lit scene in the whole movie, and I think it encapsulates a lot of what we've been talking about. Because you can't see Tian in this scene until she moves a little bit and the light hits her jewelry. Even when Sin enters, you catch his silhouette briefly before he disappears into the darkness. And this flag, or whatever that's blocking Tian's face, is so cleverly placed. It allows the highlights to carve out specific details of her face, emphasizing T-Boss's performance. And when she shifts to turn to Sin, the shadows restructure her face and emphasize new aspects of it. And this is just really the scene for me. It reads less extravagant than, say, the opening or the New Year's Eve scenes, but it's as extra and indulgent, especially the highlights on Tian's lips. I want to give some time to Christian to explain his process on Belly, particularly working in the toe and carving out details with highlights.
It was a recent accomplishment in the industry to light black people with in a way that their skin looked that way, looked interesting and colorful and not properly exposed. It was a new phase that we were exploring. And the blue has the blue vibration from it, to me is really interesting because it has a sort of unnatural thing to it. But if you choose a warmer color blue, the red tones in it begin to sink in and make it nice and interesting. So you're now willing to now we're willing to look at you, the subject, as a beautiful thing who doesn't have to be lit in a way to make you properly exposed, which implies that how you look is incorrect. There's a conversation there over a sort of short historical period of, oh yeah, we can actually like black people in a way that is abstract and sculptural and different, and it works, and we're cool with it.
Alexa came out with this thing called false color, right? Eric doesn't have false color, right? It's an array of colors that represent tonal values in the frame. Deep black and deep purple is like the toe, that's black. As you move up the color spectrum, you go green, you go yellow, red. Red is like a burned out highlight, you're never gonna get detail back. You get gray, what have you. There's pink, there's all these colors. You look at it and you know how to turn your dial, you know how to turn your aperture based on what you want, right? Christian and Malik were like, we like the threshold of skin tone. The glory about that, about what they were doing was that actually the threshold was, it paid more attention to the sculptural qualities of a face than it did the broad stroke of a face. Oh, I can't see your eyes, but you see the curve on the lips, you see the eye, you see what the color does. There's something that's happening there that has a lot more to do with nuance and detail. But they were concerned with putting everything in that purple zone. That for them was normal exposure, right? If you take the airy false color chart, you go online, look it up right now. If you look at it, when they get to the middle of the spectrum, it says properly exposed. You know what it says next to it? Caucasian skin tone. This is a camera manufactured in 2004, I don't know shit. 2005 is when it came out. So what I'm saying, I guess I'm saying all to say that like, there is a bias. Admit it. Let's not be, there is a bias. What's beautiful about what Malik and Christian did was that they learned how to find a sweet spot in the bias. It didn't crush them. It didn't make them run home. It didn't make them put the camera down because they couldn't find it. What they said was, in response to white supremacy, they said, I'm in it, but I'm going to crush it in my own way. And I'm going to work hard, and we're going to find the sweet spot. And now we're having a conversation. Now it's not a question of if 80% gray. Yeah, let them call it Caucasian. I'm cool with that because they're clear on what they're doing. I just need to be clear on what I'm doing within the spectrum of the technology that I'm like subjected to. That's the only reason why I'm even in cinematography is because that video, Belly, and Clockers took me out of here. It was just like I didn't even want to, I couldn't even believe what I was seeing. So it's just, for me, what I realized is like, as I studied, not just the films, but I studied the filmmakers, I realized these cats were like, yeah, film stocks, whatever, but there's something in there, we're going to research it. Light, color, facial structure, and they found this thing.
I think it's very generous of Christian and Brad to express the uncertainty about whether the images they make are damaging, but nevertheless being bold in their practice to follow through on instinct. There's a sterile authority of representational politics that, as I mentioned earlier, sanitizes our history and art practices, and it's refreshing to see Christian and Brad problematize this and work within the bias. I also think that it's important to note how Brad saw the audacity of the Belly crew, which inspired him to up his game. And I think it's one of the ways in which we can build future filmmakers while preserving our artistic practices. Make your shit loudly and fearlessly, even in the face of the racist contradictions in the medium. In the next video, we're going to close out this season of Eyes and Teeth by looking at the harsh highlights of Sparkle. And for the rest of May, we're going to be looking at how music videos created a collective Black cinematic aesthetic. So if you're excited about that, please subscribe, like, comment, share, etc. And we'll see you in the next one.